Ahuvai, Achai Vere'ai, my dear friends, we're going to speak about about the Jewish history and in the time of the Second Temple, So we all know the history of the Jewish people, of the Nach meaning the prophets, meaning much earlier than that. The 5 books of Moshe Rabbeinu, the history, the basics. Then we have Yoshua, Shoftim, Melachim, all the kings. And then we have also the story of the second Bet HaMikdash. But before we are getting into the story, I would like to speak about the idea of a Machlokot. What is Machlokot? Machlokot in Hebrew is an argument. Argument between people, between 2 rabbis, it's called a Machlokot. And as all of you know, that all the Torah is full of Machlokot. Sure. The rabbi Bet Hillel says yes, Bet Shammai says no. So what is the halacha? We have to think about it. And but this is basically the base of the Jewish people. To be able to argue, to be able to say that I'm not agree with you. And from this disagreement, we're going to have, coming out from it, we're going to have the halacha. We're going to have the truth coming out. So in the beginning, we could say, it's not so good to have argument, meaning that we are not agree, we could get mad on each other, and our feeling we get hurt, etc., etc. But the Torah is opposite. No, Machlokot is the basics of the Torah, and we may ask questions. We need to ask questions because without any question, without any disagreement, we cannot go deeper in the subject. We will always stay, very out and very external to the subject because we are all agree. So okay, let's go to another topic. But when we are not agree, so we're going to find a deeper meaning of everything. Now the Perkei Avot says that kol machloket she'ena leshem shamayim, that any disagreement between rabbis or between people that are not leshem shamayim, meaning for the name of God, so the end of it will never end. Meaning this is a machloket that will go and will never have a final answer. But a machloket that is leshem shamayim for Hashem, we really want to have the truth coming out from here. So falit kayem, we will have a true answer. We have the truth coming out from it. And the Mishnah continues and says which machloket is not leshem shamayim and which machloket is leshem shamayim. Which one is the machloket that is for God and which one is not. And the Mishnah says the machloket between of Korach. The story of Korach. Korach came against of Moshe and says, maybe you are not the one that's supposed to be the leader, maybe I should be the leader. So it was a Machlokot, it was disagreement between him and Moshe Rabbeinu. So this is Ena Sofalit Kayem, it will never end. And this is basically why we are saying that the Machlokot of Korach is always here. Always we have that idea that someone will come against the leader of the Jewish people and will say, oh, maybe he is not the truth. Maybe he is not the one. Maybe something else, right? This is Korach. Why? Because Korach, he had a personal interest in his argument with Moshe Rabbeinu, personal interest. Therefore, he couldn't have the truth coming out from that disagreement. But on the other side, we have a Machlokot, we have a disagreement between Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel. The Mishnah says, between the rabbis of the yeshiva of Shammai, the rabbis of the yeshiva of Hillel, and they were always disagree on every topic. And And the Chachamim are saying that those Machloket, because both of them, both of the sides, wanted to know what is the truth, what is the real truth, what Hashem wants from it. So afterwards we have an halacha. We have the halacha coming out from it, and the law says we should do this and this, because now we heard the two sides, and we are able to, both of us, even Shammai, even Hillel, to agree to something specific. Yes?
So in the Gemara, sometimes there are machlokets, like back and forth, and it says teku.
Yes.
That's when Mashiach is going to come.
Very nice. So in the Gemara, when it says teku, meaning that when Eliyahu Navi will come to announce the coming of Mashiach, so he will also come and answer on our questions. So it doesn't mean that this is like Korach has a shalom, that it will never end. Because the Gemara says when Eliyahu will come, he will make an end, he will put an end to that question. Okay, so meaning that it's the Shem Shamayim. This is for the name of God. Korach will never end. Because there is always the Yetzer Hara, the bad feeling that says, oh, maybe this rabbi is not the truth. Maybe this is not what I should do in my life. Maybe, right? This is Korach. And Korach brought something new in the world that will never end. So now, let's go in the time of the second Bet HaMikdash. I don't know if you ever read the story of the second Bet HaMikdash, but on that time, the Jewish people were split in parts, thousands of parts. It was groups of people, ones against the others, and everyone was saying, I am the one that is right. And it was fights between the Jewish people. And therefore, by the end of the story, the temple got destroyed. Why? Because of hateness. Because Jewish people hated each other for no reason. Just because I think like that and you think something else, therefore you hate me and I hate you. Therefore, the enemies was able to come in and to destroy the Bet HaMikdash. Therefore, this is for the second Bet HaMikdash. In the destruction of the first Bet HaMikdash, the reason for that it was only because the Jewish people were making mainly three averot. They were killing each other. They were making avodah zarah, idolatry, and also it was also marriage forbidden wedding.
Forbidden wedding?
Weddings. Meaning they were getting married with people that they are not supposed to get married with, according to Halacha and according to Torah. So therefore, the first Bet HaMikdash got destroyed. How long we waited between the first Bet HaMikdash and the second Bet HaMikdash? 70 years. So meaning those averot that are so bad, they are the lowest averot possible in the Torah. 70 years was enough to fix those averot and to build a new Bet HaMikdash, to come back to exile. But after hateness, after the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash, the second one, we are almost 2,000 years in the exile until today, and we are still not in the level to have the third Bet HaMikdash. So what we should do to bring the third Bet HaMikdash, we should add in the opposite, in love of our fellow Jew. So the reason why the Bet HaMikdash was destroyed because of hate. So the reason why the Bet HaMikdash, the third Bet HaMikdash will be rebuilt is because Avat Israel, Avat Chinam, Avat Israel. Understand? So in that time of the second Bet HaMikdash, it was, as I said, many groups, and it's brought in the books that those groups mainly were in two parts. It was the rabbis of today, the same people as the rabbis of today, and it was the people that were saying that the oral Torah is not true. Only we should follow the Sefer Torah. What it's written, it's Kadosh, Kadosh, Moshe gave us from the hand of God, very good. But afterward, there were rabbis that added to it. From where do we know that the tefillin is supposed to be square? Maybe I want to make tefillin round. From where we know that the tefillin is dark, maybe I want to make it red. I don't know. This is the rabbis. The rabbis came in the time of the Gemara and the Mishnah, and they explained their explanation what the Torah means when the Torah says we should tight tefillin in the hand, on the hand, and on the head. What that means? Not on the hand, meaning here, next to the heart, and and ben enecha, between the eyes, not here. It's supposed to be on top, against the like next to the brain. Okay, but those people say no. The Torah says al yadcha, on your hand you should put the tefillin, so you will put the tefillin here. This is the mitzvah of the Torah. Why? Because it says al yadcha, on top of the hand. This is al yadcha. Maybe here, I don't know. We make a discussion about it, but not here. This is not al yadcha, this is not a yad. Yad is the hand. Hand is here. Yeah. And ben enecha, between your eyes, it's here. Between your eyes. So eyes here, not here. So basically, and this is one example. But each topic in the Torah, we could, if we are translating the literal understanding of the Torah, we will basically go somewhere else, completely else. Came the Chachamim and says, no, you are wrong. You should do something else, right? So basically, this was the main Machlokot between the two groups. So, and what we see today that who succeeded, who was saved? The rabbis. The rabbis that came and they explained what Hashem wants in the Torah, they were the truth. The proof is that they succeed until today. But the other guys, the other people, they didn't.
Oh, this is where the Karaites came from?
Yes. Yes. In the year 1947, November 25th, 4 days before the state of Israel was proclaimed as a state in the United Nations, in Sha'ar Yafo, in the gates of Yafo, Jaffa, I think we're calling it in English, Yafo. He was a Jew, a big professor in archaeology. You know what is archaeology? His name was Professor Eliezer Soknik. And this person was staying there, and he met his friend, a person that was working in items that are very, very old. Very old, okay? How do you call it? Antiquer.
Yeah.
And what is his friend? Because he is a professor in this area, like, in the Jerusalem, to know what happened, etc. And this guy also is selling antique items. So therefore, they were very close to each other. And this time, on 97, November 25th, his friend says to Eliezer, "Oh, Eliezer, I will show you something, masterpiece of antique. I will show you something, but I don't understand what it says on it. I will show you something." And he showed him the Megillat Yam HaMelach. We know Megillat Esther. We know the Megillat Esther, right? Megillat Esther is one of the 24 books that are holy. We have to respect it. It's holy. But we have a Megillah, meaning a scroll of Yam HaMelach. I will explain why we are calling it Megillat Yam HaMelach. And he showed him this piece of parchment. So he's looking at it, and he doesn't know. It's written in Hebrew. He doesn't know what it is. But he was very, very interested. And he basically didn't know that he was the first Jew looking at this parchment. How this parchment arrived to the hands of the friend of Eliezer, of Professor Suknik, 1 year beforehand, meaning in 1946, it was a group of shepherds, Bedouins, shepherds, and they were going, from place to place in Eretz Israel, and they were giving grass their flock. And but beside of grassing the flock, they were going from one cave in Eretz Israel. There is a lot of caves because it's very old, so where there is a lot of caves, and they were going from one cave to the other. Every time that they were passing through a cave, they were stopping there. Why? Because they were looking for gold. They are Bedouins. They don't have any money. They don't have nothing, and they were looking for golds. So they are entering in one cave. Maybe they found something, maybe not, but they're making this all day long. One day, one of the shepherds there, he took a stone, and he threw it into the cave. They were into the one cave, and he took a stone. It was dark, and he threw it. But instead of hearing the sound of a rock hitting the other rock, like in a cave, they heard something exploding. Not like exploding, but like breaking, like glass breaking. So they saw, oh wow, maybe we have here a big treasure. They were thinking about it all day long. Maybe we have gold, but in 1946, they didn't have any iPhones to make a torch, and they couldn't see nothing there, nothing. So they waited 3 days until they got used to the darkness of the cave, and they started to look around what's happening in that cave. And they found around 10 small bottles, very, very antique small bottles. They didn't know from where it comes, but it looks very, very, very old. Very old. And they took them, and they started to see that in one of the bottles, it was 3 pieces of parchment. 3 pieces of parchment. So where they were located, where this cave was located, next to Yam HaMelach, next to the Dead Sea. Okay, Dead Sea. And they took those pieces of parchment and they started to read from it, and they didn't understand nothing because it was in Hebrew letters. They didn't know how to read nothing Hebrew, and what happened? They took it all those bottles with them, and they brought to people, to show that they have something very, very old. During 1 year, those parchment came from one hand to the other, from one hand to the other, from one hand to the other, until it arrived. Those parchment arrived to the hands of the friends of Eliezer, the professor Eliezer. And here in the gate of Yafo, the friend of Eliezer says to Eliezer, "Oh, you are a professor in archaeology. I will show you something." And he's taking out those pieces of parchment, and he didn't know what it is. So this was on 1947. On the follow 10 years, they found those kind of parchments, thousands of those kind of parchments. They didn't know what it's written on it, but it's written something on it. It's like a message that you cannot understand. Yeah. They became like crazy. What it is. And professor of archaeology, they could also manage to know from which period of time those parchments are coming. And they saw that those parchments are coming from the time of the second Bet HaMikdash. Wow. Of the second Bet HaMikdash. Meaning 300 years before our era, meaning 2,323 years ago. Wow. And like that, thousands and thousands of parchments. So now the next step it was like to understand. Yeah.
Is this what they call the Dead Sea Scrolls?
Yeah.
Where they found it, the Dead Sea Scrolls?
I'm not sure.
Yes, I saw it. I saw it in English. It says Dead Sea Scrolls, but they didn't find it into the water. They found it into caves because apparently there is a lot of caves next to the Dead Sea, and there they found it a lot. So because of what? Because one guy, a shepherd Bedouin, that threw a rock and he heard something, and they found that on those caves it's full of old stuff, and we could from it understand what happened like 2,000 years ago. So the Bet HaMikdash, the second Bet HaMikdash, he stood, the second Bet HaMikdash, for 420 years. So meaning 300 years before our era, meaning 2,323 years ago, until year 70. Until year 70. Okay? So it's around 300 years before our era. So it's total 420 years. So it's a bit more than 300. Then the second Bet HaMikdash got destroyed. So if we say that those parchment was written at that time, so we could say that this is people that were saying what happened on their time. And basically they found many of those parchment, and they started to understand what it says in these Megillot. So I would say it's very long. So we're going to split this class in many parts, okay. And by the end of all the classes, we're going to understand 6 big Machlokot between the Jewish people, meaning they fought together. The Jewish people, if each one which the other. Why? Because of big Machlokot, big arguments. They couldn't agree on topics. And by the end of the classes, we're going to have a complete picture of those Machlokot. Be'ezrat Hashem. Okay, so we're going to start little by little, and then we're going to see. So who was those Jews? The people that wrote those parchment, it was Jewish people. How do we know? Because all of them were written either in Aramaic, either in Hebrew, and only Jewish people were able to write this kind of writing. We have some picture on Google if you are writing the Dead Sea parchments.
I think I saw this. They're in Yerushalayim, right?
Yes.
With the water going on the roof of the
I don't
museum.
know. I don't know.
It's a white museum. I think I went to.
So there is. So I'm sure that they don't show everything, but the main ones they are showing.
It looks like this.
Yes.
It's a white museum. I think.
So who was those Jews? So to answer the question, who was those Jews and what they were doing, what was the situation of that generation for writing parchment and throwing into the caves, we are not understanding really much what happened there. So we're going to start to look into those parchments, many of them, and we're going to understand slowly what happened. But beforehand, I would like to say 2 things. First is the Jewish people, even if in the Judaism the Machlokot is good. It's good to have Machlokot, disagreement between rabbis. It's fine, but the Jewish people never looked for it. They never liked to be in disagreement. If we could agree each other, it's always better. Why? Because there is in the Mishnah a sentence saying the following: Lo matza HaKadosh Baruch Hu kli machzik bracha liYisrael. HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't find a vessel for the Jewish people, a vessel to get the blessing for the Jewish people, ela hashalom, only the peace. So they said, if the peace is the vessel to get the blessing from God, so let's be in peace. Why we should make Machlokot between each other, right? So let's be in peace. Okay? And therefore, we must say that the Jewish people didn't look for it. If it happened, okay, it's fine. This is the way how to find a deeper meaning of everything. But if we could agree on topics, is the best. Because this is the way how to get the blessing from God. And by the way, I will just add something else. You know, the Kohen, when he's blessing the Jewish people in the synagogue, or many thousand years ago in the Bet HaMikdash, in the temple, he's making a bracha. It says, the bracha is, אשר קידשנו בקדושתו של אהרון וציוונו לברך את עמו ישראל באהבה. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu sanctify them, the Kohanim, to bless the Jewish people be'ahava, with love. So the question is, if that Kohen just got in trouble in agreement with one of the congregation, it's not be'ahava anymore. It's not be'ahava. So how he could bless the guy that is not agree with, and he has an agreement with him? He cannot bless him. And therefore in Halakha it says that if a Kohen killed someone by mistake, if a Kohen has an agreement with someone in the shul, in the synagogue, right, he cannot make a blessing anymore. Until he is be'ahava, in peace with everybody of the congregation, then he could make a bracha, because it's be'ahava. Why is that? Why the HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to the Kohen, you could bless, but only with love. If you don't have the love to the Jewish people there, you cannot bless. Why is that? Because of that sentence. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't find a keli, a vessel for the blessing of God, only the peace. So if you don't have peace, you are not a vessel to get the blessing. So the Kohen is not able to make a blessing at all. And this is true also for blessing your fellow Jew. If your fellow Jew is, you like him and you bless him, then it's happening. But if you are in agreement, let's say you are not agree with him, you don't like him, you hate him, chaz v'shalom, so then what happens? You cannot bless him, because the only way how to get the vessel, the bracha from Hashem, is with the peace. Okay? So this is first. Number one is that on the time of the Jewish people, even if on the time of the Gemara, that all the rabbis were agreeing between themselves, if they were able to find a topic that they all agree with each other, that was the best. But if not, okay, we're going to argue until we're going to find the halakha, the truth, and then we're going to agree, and then we're going to have the bracha. But meanwhile, we have argument. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't like so much argument. So, as we said, in the time of the second Bet HaMikdash, there was a lot of Machlokot. But not only in the time of the Bet HaMikdash, of the second Bet HaMikdash. The Machlokot, the disagreement that took a generation, complete generation, and they made big fight between themselves. We could, throughout the history of the Jewish people, we could find 6 big Machlokot throughout the history, and we're going to speak about them, Bezrat Hashem, on the next classes, and I will tell you one of them. You know the Maimonides, the Rambam, right? Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon. The Rambam, by the beginning, when he wrote his explanation on the Torah, the rabbis were saying that we should burn his book. We should destroy his book. Why? Because the Rambam was saying that we have to, that the fact that he knows, all the astrology, how the stars are working, and all the natural, right? It's from the Greeks. And he says, yes, we are allowed to learn from Greeks all the physics, right? And it's fine. But the rabbi says, no, you are not allowed. The Greeks are basically using bad power to know all what they know. So you are not allowed to use their knowledge. The Rambam says, no, I'm sorry, because the Greeks stole from us. In the time of the Bet HaMikdash, much earlier, we know that. We were the people that knew all those kind of things. But after destruction, they took everything we had and we forgot everything. So they stole from us. So basically it's ours. So therefore we are allowed. So this basically this.
How does he know that the Greeks stole?
So this was his way how to understand the history of the world, of the Jewish people, is that. How does he know? It's a very good question. How does he know? I will tell you why.
He wasn't alive.
Very nice. I will tell you because there is a mitzvah in the Torah to sanctify the new months. You know this mitzvah? In the shul, everybody is getting closer to the Sefer Torah, and we are saying that the new months will be on Monday, right? This is sanctifying the new months, right? Okay. But in the time of the Bet HaMikdash, when all the Jewish people were in Israel, this were happening through the witnesses that were coming to the rabbinical court of the Bet HaMikdash, okay. And they were testifying that they saw the moon in that direction, in the northeast of the sky. The moon was like that, and it was not so high in the heaven, it was a little bit low. And according to calculation, rabbis were able to know if it's truth or not, if it's the truth or not.
Okay.
So basically, one second. So basically, the rabbis on that time, they were able to make calculation. How they knew the calculation? Because Moshe Rabbeinu taught them. There is a mitzvah to sanctify the new months. How could you know when the new moon will appear? Maybe you will not be able to see it. Right? So through calculation, you could get the results from it. You could get the result from it, right? So basically, we understand from it that the calculation are coming from us. Afterwards, after the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash, the new month is becoming a system that Hillel made himself. We are not basing ourselves through witnesses. There is no witnesses going in the rabbinical court and testify, oh, we saw the new moon in the heaven. No. We have a calendar, and according to the calendar, it's going month after month. Okay? So basically, from when it came those calculations, from the Jewish people. This was according to the Rambam. It says, from the mitzvah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us in the time of the giving of the Torah of Matan Torah, to sanctify through calculation and witnesses the new moon, this is the proof that we got all the astrology calculation it's ours. This is our wisdom. Afterwards, slowly, the nation stole from us this knowledge, right? And then, if we are learning it, basically, we are taking back this. It's fine. It's not bad power from Greeks. But rabbis wasn't agree with the Rambam, and therefore they destroyed his book. You understand? The books of Rambam that is holy. Today we are kissing those books. They destroy them, and books after books they destroy them. Why? Because they wasn't agree. So this is one of the Machlokot that happened throughout the history of the Jewish people. Okay, so and 6 big Machlokot happened during the time, if we could say like that, throughout the history of the Jewish people.
So that was the one of the 6?
Yes.
That was one of the 6.
I would say, but I just said very, very, very extra. Bro. Right. But afterwards, when we were going to arrive to explain these Machlokot, we're going to go even deeper than that. We're going to understand what and how happened those things. So what was? Let's go back to our Megillat Yam HaMelach. The Megillah, the scroll of the Dead Sea. What was written in it? So I will bring one of one Megillah. I will read in Hebrew, and then I will explain you, and you're going to understand from it, and with it, we're going to finish. We're going to understand from it that it was a big fight in the Jewish people on that time. Look. It says like that. So, first of all, we should know that this Megillah, it's written on a verse in the book of Nahum. Nahum was one of the prophets. One of the 24 books is the book of Nahum. And on one of the verses, it says like that in the Megillat Yam HaMelach. So Megillat Yam HaMelach is not holy at all. Someone wrote it, just like I'm writing on the paper. He wrote it on parchment. It says like that. Have ir hadamim kula kachash. Parak melea pashoru hi ir Ephraim darshe achalakot la'acherim hayamim asher bekachash ushkarim hitalachu nachum. This is one of the parts of the parchment that they found on those caves. And basically, it speaks about Ephraim. If you paid attention, I said Ephraim. And this is the name that the people that were going against the Jewish people, against the rabbis, they were calling the rabbis Ephraim.
They called all rabbis Ephraim?
One second, maybe it's the opposite. No, I'm sorry, the opposite. No, 1 second. So, the opposite. The rabbis, they were calling the people that didn't agree with them, and they were saying, no, we should not follow the oral Torah, right? The rabbis were calling those guys Ephraim. I will explain why.
Okay.
Everyone was called Yehuda, Yehudim, or Israel, right? This is general names for the Jewish people. But during the time of the second Bet HaMikdash, according to those Megillot, we understanding that the rabbis, or all the people that were following the rabbis, were calling the people that were against the rabbis Ephraim. Why? Because he was a king. Maybe you heard about him. A king that called, his name was Yerovam ben Nevat. Yerovam ben Nevat, Jeroboam ben Nevat, son of Nevat. I don't know in English how do you call him. And this king, the Gemara says that Chata v'echti et Arabim. He is one of the only people that have such a title, that he made a sin, and not only that, he made the Jewish people, all the Jewish people making a sin. Chata ve'echti et Arabim. And from which tribe he came? From Ephraim. So the rabbis and the followers of the rabbis were calling those people that were going against them Ephraim. Why? Because they were coming from the same ideologia from the king of Yerovam ben Nevat.
Wow.
And we're going to see how far they were. They went so far between themselves, they couldn't hear each other. And as I said in the beginning, therefore the second Bet HaMikdash was destroyed because it wasn't shalom. It wasn't the peace between themselves. And also into the Bet HaMikdash, it was politics. Because how do you make a sacrifice? The sacrifice according to the Torah is one way. But the rabbis came to explain what the Torah means, right? And it's something else. So there is the group of the Ephraim, how do we call them? Come and says, no, it's not like that, we should make a korban. And the rabbi says, no, it's like that, we should make a korban. And it's starting a fight in the Bet HaMikdash.
So let me ask you, the people who weren't listening to the rabbis, were they, I don't know if it's not the right word, it's not Talmid Chacham, but like, were they knowledgeable like the rabbis
Yes,
were?
yes.
They were?
They were very, very, very knowledgeable. There is the camera, maybe I will not say something, but so basically we're gonna what we learn. So this is I will stop here because and Bezat Hashem next week we're gonna continue in that story. So what we learned the idea of Machlokot. That Machlokot is very important to the Jewish people. We saw throughout the generation many Machlokot, but we saw also that there is Machlokot that never ended. And there is Machlokot that ended somehow, like in a point. And we see from it that if you have a personal interest, it will never end. If your interest is basically to know what Hashem wants, it will end somewhere.
What was that called in Hebrew?
L'Shem Shamayim. L'Shem Shamayim, from the name of God. Okay. And so we learned what is Megillat Yam HaMelach, the scroll of the Dead Sea. And we brought one part of the Megillah saying the story of what was the situation of the second Bet HaMikdash. Okay, so the main point is what is to be with Avat Yisrael. So Bezat Hashem, we're going to have very soon in our days the construction of the third Bet HaMikdash b'mehera b'yameinu.
Amen.
Baruch Adonai l'olam, amen v'amen.